So I hope this works. And I hope see that. That is my Venmo and my Cash App. If you would like to support my channel, I would greatly appreciate it. It helps me to make more videos for you guys. Y'all, it has been a busy day. Super busy morning. I had a job interview that did not go well at all. The lady, I don't know why they put people front and center of companies that they know good and well had attitude. Why would you want probably one of the best people that works at your company to do the hiring of the company? I'll never get it. But once again, how much is that people have seen my content and they already have, pre-existing prejudice against me, and how much is it that I just don't qualify for the job? Or how much of it is my background, affecting me? I just ran inside of this grocery store and got some strawberries for lunch. I've been trying to drink my water today. I typically don't get enough in me. Speaking of which, where is that gallon? I fixed my nails. I did a better job this time. I said that I just needed like 1 or 2 go-arounds and I could definitely do it better. It doesn't take me long to pick something up and be able to do it. Let's see if I can pour this without spilling it. Oh, I felt a drop. Oh. All right. I spilled a dropper, nothing major. Let me get my computer back up. Oh, let me get comfortable. Hey, y'all. Oh, wow. Go ahead and turn that off. I'm sorry, you guys. I apologize for other people's stupidity. There we go. Cut off the silence. Cut out all the noise. Y'all. So I know that I've told you guys that doctors get kickbacks on prescription medications, but I haven't exactly explained to you guys how it happens. So I want to talk about that. Some of these reports, let's see. This one was in 2019. They found that over 700 doctors paid more than $1 million by drug and medical device companies. So they were getting kickbacks for prescribing certain medications and also medical devices. I knew a guy once that sold medical supplies and he made darn good money. So it said back in 2013, there was development that a doctor in just 4 years, one doctor had earned over $1 million giving promotional talks and consulting for drug companies, and 21 others had made more than $500,000. Years later, despite often damning scrutiny from prosecutors and academics, such high earnings have become commonplace. It is more common now than ever. Now this was just year before last in 2022. The United States Attorney's Office It says, this is from the United States Attorney General's office. It says, doctor sentenced for accepting illegal kickback payments in return for writing prescriptions for compound drugs. A doctor's license in the state of Oklahoma and Texas was for writing and referring compound drug prescriptions in return for illegal kickback payments. Now, the doctor's name was Jerry May Keepers. He was 69 when he was busted. And he is from Kingwood, Texas. And he was sentenced to 36 months in jail. I'm sorry, 36 months supervised probation. You think that's matters when he's a millionaire now? He doesn't care. Like, he should have faced jail time. Nearly 70,000 Americans die every year from drug overdoses, mostly opioids. One year-long investigation, which concluded just as the coronavirus was spreading, uncovered the playbook of sales practices that had triggered an explosion of prescriptions. When Greg Trema looks back at the carnage caused by the rise in the use and abuse of opioids, one early case sticks in his mind. In 2003, senior special agent assigned to the undercover arm of the Food and Drug Administration in D.C. Office of Criminal Investigations. His target, Sulfilivone, one of several drug companies. I'm going to show you this so you can see it. Let's see where to go. That's a drug company. One of several drug companies doing business in ways that brazenly flouted the FDA's regulations. They weren't afraid of the FDA. Would they be? You only receive a misdemeanor. So they're willing to take that slap on the wrist. The profits are too big. At the time when a drug company was caught violating the FDA regulations, federal prosecutors typically would negotiate corporate settlement agreements without holding individual pharmaceutical executives accountable. So they're able to hide behind the company, essentially. You gotta go around. Had to tighten that up. So this dude's investigation revealed that company was violating strict FDA laws on drug promotion with 3 drugs, including a synthetic opioid, a dangerous fast-acting fentanyl sold in a lollipop form. Do y'all remember that? I remember when those lollipops were around, because at the time, it was like 2012, maybe 2010-ish. People would get those lollipops, and it was pain medication in a candy form. It was the weirdest thing. And I remember eating those when I was sick. Coming off of heroin, you could always find morphine or Dilaudid or those opioid pops. Not good. So, and it's easy absorption through the mouth, which is why it was in a lollipop form, so that the drugs could get in your system faster. It says the drug is 100 times more powerful than morphine and intended for severe cancer patients only. And this, we're talking for people in the end stage of cancer. So it says the document carries the weight of a legally binding agreement between the FDA and drug companies, limiting how sales reps can promote a drug, pushing a drug for patient groups not listed on the label, spread leading information, or publicizing a potentially deadly drug as less dangerous than the FDA evaluations indicate is called off-label promotion, and it's against the law. You know, these pharmaceutical companies, they want as many people as possible on these prescription drugs, and they definitely want them addicted physically. Pain pills, opiates, these lollipops that are in question, they're physically addictive. So if you don't have them and you've been using them for, let's say, a week, yes, that short period of time, you are going to become physically addicted. And then when you don't have it, your life is going to crumble because you're sick and you can't work. You can't do nothing. Something is aggravating my lip. Sometimes I leave toothpaste in my mouth too long because I'm whitening my teeth with it. And it literally burns the skin off my lips. All right. So some guy named Alec was a star sales representative at this company, and he told us that he would say almost anything to convince doctors to prescribe these lollipops. Before going on with this company, he was a standout sales representative at Eli Lilly and Johnson & Johnson, which is a shampoo drug company. Wherever he worked, he says the sales tactics were always the same game. Ignore the FDA's off-label promotion laws. This is a guy that was a sales representative for multiple huge corporations, and he says that it is widely known that they break the law. They do unethical things to try to get these doctors to prescribe certain brands, their brand of drug, whatever company that they work for. But it gets better. Apparently, there was strip clubs involved, dinners, and trips. Yeah, who would have thunk it? The federal investigation of this company began in January of 2003 when a sales rep with a troubled conscience got in touch with this Greg guy, telling him that it was pushing its sales team to break the law. To gather hard evidence against Greg, Agent Greg got approval from the federal prosecutors to wire up the sales rep and conduct surveillance operations of company employees at this Nevada hotel site, the site of the drug maker's annual sale conference and training sessions. So they're going into a conference trying to surveillance this place, get this on recording that this company is pushing these salesmen to do illegal practices, to be unethical. Wrong is wrong and right is right. It doesn't matter what setting it is. When you're going into any endeavor with dirty hands, it's wrong. So it seems like it says Greg says that we set it up right outside of the hotel room where we managed the source as we wired him up and we sent him in and we listened to the group conversations. So we were listening, this is from Greg, we were listening to the techniques of how they train somebody to sell drugs, and they're being encouraged by senior drug reps. Quote, I like the way you steered the doctor away from the label and you talked about severe migraines sufferers. So essentially you're listening to how they groom a doctor. And Greg replies, yes. Greg says that he was disgusted. It was just so open, the conversations about disregarding the label and breaking the law. It's almost like a game to a lot of sales reps. I'm sure that they do. If they're getting kickbacks, if they're making money, it absolutely is a game. Every time they make more money, they're getting a rush of adrenaline. It's like gambling. It's like junkies that go to the casino to gamble their savings away. Every time they win, they get a dopamine rush of dopamine. It's the same thing. They just have a degree. So Greg recorded days of damning conversations between sales reps, providing accounts of their strategies. It sounded to him more like the corrupt tactics of an organized criminal operation. So Greg says that they would target what we call pill mill doctors first. Now, pill mill doctors are doctors who are prescribing pain pills, or any kind of narcotic pills in mass quantities to people that are, I mean, it's a bunch of them got shut down 10 years ago all over Florida, but it was a big thing back in the day, and it still is. There is still doctors who would rather put you on medication than put you in therapy, and that is not okay. And they don't tell you the warnings of that medication. You get addicted to it. That's the scariest part. It's a long process. You've got to get those that are established pill mill, what we call them, pain clinics, that the doctors just had no conscience. And then you have the ones that you're slowly grooming and developing where they feel comfortable prescribing the off-label drug. So that company is, let's try to say it's Cephalon. So the Cephalon documents that were obtained by 60 Minutes show how Cephalon roped in willing or vulnerable patients. It spread deceptive information about it and offered incentives for doctors to prescribe opioids, including medical education programs, conference junkets, and free dining and drinking, and lucrative peer-to-peer speaking engagements. The master plan noted that, quote, these programs generate immediate script impact. In other words, they got doctors to write more prescriptions. So it's adding to the opioid epidemic. These doctors doing this, it's not okay. I hope that my microphone's on. Let's see. So Greg says some of these people have been on multiple vacations over the last year, and some of them were paid up to $200,000 a piece. And it's a bribe. And I agree. It's an absolute bribe that we need to have laws in place to prevent this. It's unethical. So unethical. When you start taking money in exchange for prescribing medications, you're no longer ethical. Your morals have been polluted, and you no longer need to be a doctor, because what should come first is the patient's health. And if you are aimlessly prescribing these medications, these serious narcotics, to people sober and don't need them, you are the problem. Not only should you face criminal jail time, you should face jail time and criminal charges, but you need to have your license taken. And we need to have laws that are on the books, laws that we can use to prevent this from happening. There needs to be deterrence for this behavior, not incentives. And just like our southern border, there is only incentives. Greg says that it's a straight hustle. The only difference is that they're in a suit and tie when they do their hustle. That is the only difference. So they ended up raiding this conference, and this is so funny. Greg says that when they raided the conference, that everybody, he says, quote, like roaches, literally within 20 minutes there was probably 100 taxi cabs out front, and we were sitting out our window watching the drug reps run out to get into cabs to leave. That's how punks do. Cowards behave like that. When you confront them, or they know they're about to be confronted, they take off to avoid, the conflict that they started. They absolutely started. How cowardly of them. So this was a huge operation that they did. So it says some guy named Bill Whitaker chimed in saying that they're breaking the law. People are becoming more addicted, dying from their practices. Why would the FDA and the government want to sort of tiptoe around them? And Greg says the FDA was afraid of big farm. The case ended in 2008 when Cephalon pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor for illegal promotion and paid $425 million in fines and settlements, less than a quarter of what Cephalon made in 1 year. The company was eventually sold for $6.8 billion, and the guy Alec found a new job at a different company. When Alec and former Cephalon sales reps in a new home in 2012 working for the pharmaceutical mogul named John Kapoor, they would rack up huge profits selling Subsys, a new formulation of fentanyl. Just like the lollipops, it was FDA approved for cancer pain only. And on the strength of it's SUSYS. Subsys sales, Kapoor's company became a Wall Street sensation, one fueled by unbelievable greed and depravity. Y'all know what I mean. In the midst of the deadly epidemic, NC's sales rep got doctors to prescribe opioids for unapproved uses, enticing them with all expenses paid visits to strip clubs, fancy dinners with money, which federal prosecutors say corrupted the practice of medicine. This time there would be no settlement. NC's was targeted as an organized criminal enterprise, and its top executives were prosecuted. So their top executive, John Kapoor, a billionaire entrepreneur and former CEO of NC's Therapeutics, arrived at a federal courthouse in Boston for sentencing. A jury had found him, along with several of his top executives, guilty of racketeering, mail and wire fraud, conspiring recklessly and illegally boost profits from an opioid painkiller, Subsys, a fentanyl spray designed to be absorbed under the tongue. Kapoor received 5.5 years. His lieutenants received 12 to 33 months, in part because of the testimony that the government star witness Alec, the guy that we were talking about, who was the senior vice president of sales at NC, who pled guilty and cooperated with prosecutors. So since he was a snitch, he got a lesser sentence. He told first. So Alec was, in January, after he was convicted of bribing physicians. So it does happen, and it happens quite a bit. And I think that we are just, because everything is so hectic, from the price of everything to this failed administration, I think that things like this get worse when nobody is making sure that they're not happening. You know what I mean? We don't have anybody out here watching these doctors. Even though, they shut most of the pill mills down in Florida, it's still a huge issue. And you know that these doctors are still, this has become a bigger problem under this administration, without a doubt, because everything has went to hell in a handbasket in the past 4 years. Speaking of the opioid epidemic, so we all know that Oregon, I'm sorry, one last thing on this before I go. Pharmaceutical companies can pay doctors for a variety of reasons, including consulting, promotional talks, and meals. While it's illegal for doctors to receive direct payment for prescribing a specific drug, there are a number of ways that pharmaceutical companies can indirectly influence doctors to prescribe their drugs. That's a problem. Pharmaceutical companies can pay doctors, sorry, just read that. So it says here that doctors who have direct contact with industry salespersons are more likely to prescribe the company's drugs. Doctors who also receive information about pharmaceutical products from the industry are more likely to prescribe those drugs. Doctors who receive free drug samples are more likely to prescribe that company's drugs. Studies have shown that doctors who receive payments from pharmaceutical companies are more likely to prescribe those drugs. For example, a 2016 study found that after the makers of Lindsay's paid doctors about $29 million, prescriptions for the drug increased by 45%. And it's LINZESS. It says the consequences for doctors and pharmaceutical companies who engage in corruption can be severe. For example, in 2020, Novartis agreed to pay the U.S. government almost $700 million to settle allegation that the company violated the federal anti-kickback statute. I don't think that's happening as much as it needs to happen, though. Because there are entirely too many people out here on medications that they do not need, that are causing them more problems, and then in return, they need a different medication. How about that? And right on theme with the drugs, let's talk about the drug policy of Oregon, because for those that don't know, they changed some things. We all know that drugs were legalized in Oregon a few years back. In 2021 under the Biden administration, and it was actually not the Biden administration that passed this. It was actually the city, the people of Oregon voted for this. And we've seen Oregon crash and burn. It's a mess. So on February 1st of 2021, Oregon became the first state in the United States to criminalize the possession of small quantities of all illicit drugs following the passing of Oregon Ballot Measure 110 in November of 2020. The law was passed by a 58% of voters in a ballot initiative. Among other provisions, it directs hundreds of millions of dollars from cannabis tax collections to addiction treatment. However, in 2024, Oregon partially revised its drug laws. Reversed, sorry. Dyslexia coming in clutch, ain't it? With the governor signing a new law which made possessing small amounts of hard drugs a misdemeanor starting September 1st of 2024. So that just started not too long ago. However, the new law did not require mandatory jail time in all cases or apply to soft drugs, with cannabis tax revenue even still being maintained as a source of funding for drug treatment, which is crazy to me. You know why this is crazy? Because marijuana is a gateway drug. Cannabis use among adolescents can act as a gateway to harder drugs such as opioids. Long studies by drug policy reformers at the gateway hypothesis say that a drug such as cannabis could lower the threshold for addiction to other substances such as opioids. Behaviorally and developmentally, it is clear that many of the shared root causes, for example, predisposition, trauma, unstable psychiatric symptoms, thrill seeking, impulsivity, delayed discounting, environmental exposure, that increase an individual's likelihood of using cannabis all increase the same individual's likelihood of opioid use. For instance, one study published by American Academy of Pediatrics documents findings from one analysis that adolescents who use cannabis are 104 times more likely to use cocaine than adolescents who have never used cannabis. There are significant differences between these two populations of adolescents predating the onset of cannabis use. These observations often used by proponents of cannabis legalizations to disregard the possibility that the adolescent use of cannabis may, in and of itself, create a risk for the use of opioids or other drugs that otherwise would not exist. This review discusses recent scientific discoveries that address psychological mechanisms. Y'all, there is 20 letters in that word. Whereby cannabis use could biologically introduce additional risk for the likelihood of opiation, dose escalation, and OUD that otherwise might occur within the same individual. Now I just got to say that this was written by the National Library of Medication, which I get a lot of my information from. This was written July of 2020. Something that I found interesting is that this goes on to talk about the horrors of the opioid epidemic. And it says that at this time, when this was written in 2020, we had an annual death count of around 45,000. That is doubled. We had over 100,000 deaths last year because of opioids. So just in a matter less than 4 years, right at 4 years, it's doubled. One can only, especially in Oregon, that it's because they decriminalized hard drugs. I mean, we've seen it take over. They have machines that have needles and what's the stuff that goes up your nose? It's a vending machine that has needles and Narcan. Okay, it's just absolutely unacceptable. It's unacceptable. We need to be preventing people from wanting to do drugs, and here we are handing out paraphernalia to do it with. Firstly, for every fatal opioid overdose, there are many more non-fatal overdoses, some of which inevitably lead to hospitalization, intubation, intubation. Y'all know what I'm trying to. Greatly surpass that from natural, pleasurable activities such as eating rich foods, social activities, sex, and adventurous sports. It's really sad what's happening out there. I'm just looking to see if there's anything else that how it says that even nicotine can be a gateway drug to other drugs, or it can be. It said that It said there's convincing studies to support that nicotine can serve as a gateway drug to cocaine. They did studies in mice. Says cannabis and cannabinoids impact adolescent neurodevelopment through many different mechanisms, including the regulation of synapse plasticity. I need a bell when I get these words right. Modification of adolescent emotion and cognitive circuits. The reduction of whole dentries. Reduction of, Jesus Christ, I give up. I give up. It's too much. It's too much. Right here. Reduction in the, yeah. It's saying that these are the parts of the brain that smoking marijuana affects poorly in adolescents. They shouldn't be smoking it. I mean, I think that we can all agree that, but this is saying, like, even like 20-year-olds, this can affect your development because your brain is not fully developed, baby, until you're 25. It's unfortunate, I know. Mine probably didn't even develop till I was like 32, so dang it. Why? There we go. Oh, I'm stuck. All right. Here we go. Oh, it's getting hot again. It says it's only 73 outside, but it feels a lot hotter to me. There we go. I figured something out. Stay. Trying to get better. All right. So this was one of the few studies that actually I felt like was being honest. And of course, once again, it's from the National Library of Medicine. If you want to go read it, you can find it through the number is PMC 7359408 if you want to go read that. It's very interesting stuff. It's probably one of the only honest studies that we currently have because everything is being lied about. Everything. I find it interesting that I do believe it was a 52% increase. Organs. I was trying to tell y'all, since they decriminalized it. I mean, when you decriminalize it, you know, they also defunded the police out there. It's one of those places where they're understaffed at the police department. So even if people are on drugs, they don't have nobody to go out and address the situation. It's been decriminalized. So even if they're busted with drugs, they're not going to jail. And hell, you have these clinics, these minute clinics to get your methadone and Suboxone. You have them passing out drug paraphernalia, really enticing people to everyone to be complicit and allowing people to kill themselves. It's crazy. And then they're getting government funding to not help anybody, to make the situation worse, 10 times worse. I'm trying to figure out, I think it said there was a 52% increase on drugs since the legalization or the, you know, decriminalization. I'm sorry, I had an article and it's just... Now, this is from the Oregon.gov. Hold on one second. It says OHA sees a 70% increase in drug overdose deaths during April and May of 2020. And this was before they decriminalized it. So it's just crazy. So y'all were having these overdeath problems. Y'all knew that this was an issue. So y'all passed a law to make people, to assist and be complicit in this. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Now, this is from the DEA this year, the United States Drug Enforcement Administration.gov, and it says, this was written May 9th of 24. Let me slow down because this pisses me off. Drug-related deaths claimed 107,000 American lives in 2022. Fentanyl and other synthetic opioids are responsible for approximately 70% of lost lives, while methamphetamine and other synthetic stimulants are responsible for approximately 30% of deaths. Here's some newer numbers. Over the past 2 years, seizures of fentanyl powder nearly doubled. Meanwhile, the more than 79 million fentanyl pills that were seized by the DEA in 2023 is almost triple of what was seized in 2021. Having that border open does not help to make the drugs to kill us with. Unbelievable. And this administration is the cause of all of this. And if you think for a moment that Kamala Harris is going to get in office and close that border, honey, bless your heart. She's had the past 3.5 years to do that. They didn't do it then. They ain't going to do it. They lying bold-faced to you. Comes out. It's a lie. Every single state is a lie. So I don't know what this is. It says last year, 30% of the fentanyl powder seized by the DEA contained xylazine. Let's see what that is, because it don't sound healthy, honey. XYLA lazy. XYLANZE lazy. Yes. Oh. What is xylazine? It's all called trank. It's a non-opioid sedative or tranquilizer. I thought it was a horse tranquilizer. So it's not, or hold on one second. Do they use it? They do use it for horses. It says it's very commonly provided and for both diagnostic procedures and treatment of visceral pain, visceral in horses. I'm sorry. What? I think I'm good. Y'all remember when I told y'all that I had one bad experience where I had an out-of-body experience when I was shooting some heroin? And I was in the club that my ex owned, and he had found somebody. I was sick, y'all, and he was in from DC, home from DC or whatever, and I hadn't seen him in forever, and I didn't want to be sick because we were having a party night. And he got me this stuff, and I shot it, and I could not move. It was the scariest moment of my life, because I could still think, I could still see, I could still hear, but I could not feel myself breathing. I could not move my body, and I was stuck for about 10 minutes before I snapped out of it. And I remember him sitting behind the desk, and he's doing his drugs. I never was into uppers. I'm naturally up, okay? So he's sitting back there, and I remember watching him doing that, wondering if he was going to check on me, but my eyes were open, and I didn't pass out and die from not breathing, so I must have been breathing, you know? And I remember when I snapped out of it, I said, oh my God. I said, what the hell? Like, I said, what is this? I said, I've been trying to scream at you for 10 minutes. Imagine being trapped and not being able to speak. Oh my God. I don't know if that was trank, but all I know was that experience is part of the reason I got clean, because it was scary, y'all. It was one of the scariest moments when it came to me doing drugs. Hold on one second. I want to get off the Wi-Fi because it's messing my phone up. Isn't that crazy that when I'm on the Wi-Fi, it messed my stuff up? But yeah, it was one of the contributing factors that got me clean. So it said last year, 30% of the fentanyl powder seized by the DEA contained this xylem, or whatever it is, xylene, and that is up from 25% from 2022. So the cartels have a mutual profitable partnership with China-based chemical companies to obtain the necessary ingredients to manufacture synthetic drugs. They also work in partnership with Chinese money laundering organizations to launder drug money, to launder the drug money. They're also increasingly using cryptocurrency. Nearly all of the methamphetamine sold in the United States today is manufactured in Mexico. That's not what they said the other day when we were looking into that biker gang. They said that they produce methamphetamine. So, listen. This is from the government, so of course they're going to say it's all coming from our southern border. And I'm sure the majority is. It says it's purer and more potent than in past years. The shift to Mexican manufactured methamphetamine is evident by the dramatic decline in domestic labs. It says in 2023, the DEA El Paso Intelligence Center documented 60 domestic methamphetamine lab seizures, which is a stark comparison to the 2004 when it was 23,000 methamphetamine labs were seized in the United States. Is it that they've gone away, or is it that we don't have people out here doing their jobs? I think it's a little bit of both. It has always been my belief that marijuana is a gateway drug. And when I was 15 or 16, I started my first job at Sonic, and I worked with a girl, and her parents would smoke with us. Probably not a good idea. I was probably 16, maybe 17. And yeah, not a good idea. I think that when you have kids, they need to be a top priority, and smoking dope with them and drinking alcohol with them is not the right attitude to have. You need to get them out the house, get them kayaking, take them on cheap camping trips, teach them how to start fires. Do y'all know how many children nowadays don't know how to start a fire by hand? That is like a necessity in life. Just in case, you know? But yeah, not smoking dope and drinking alcohol. That's not okay. And speaking of children, a father in California was just granted full custody of his 4-year-old son following a legal battle that took years. The mother of the boy allegedly was forcing this child to dress up as a girl. The mother was putting glitter on the child and wanted to raise the child as non-binary. Now, this was such a huge issue that it was affecting him in daycare when he was younger than 4 years old. She started doing this, and it added to Harrison Tinsley, the father, going in front of a judge and saying, this is not all right. My son is a boy. He was born a boy. He's going to stay a boy. Just because we're out here in the crazy wild, wild west of California does not mean that my ex-wife is allowed to raise him as a boy. So let me just read you some of this. And this was it just says years-long court battle. Now, I remember of hearing of this case back in the day, and I've been rooting for this father for years. I don't remember how long it's been. Let me show you. That is Harrison Tinsley and his son. What is his name? Sawyer Tinsley. So, as you can see, healthy little baby boy. Looks like his dad a lot. So, the way that it's going to work is that he was granted full custody. Now, he has complete control over the mother seeing the child or not, and I agree with the judge's decision. She has already proven that she is mentally unstable by trying to turn her little boy into a little girl to meet her own personal needs. Like, it's preposterous that you can do this in some states. But not only that, I've told you guys before that there was a mother who lost custody of her daughter because her daughter wanted to be a boy, and the DHS department, the Department of Health and Human Services, came in, took custody of the teenage daughter, and a few days after, this daughter was put into a temporary foster group home through the Department of Social Services. A few days later, she stepped out onto some train tracks and she took her own life. And this mother lost her daughter because of policies that have been implemented in California stating that if you do not give your child gender-affirming care, that your child can be taken from you. So if you don't believe in your child's delusions, you can lose custody of your child in certain parts of California. And I think it's the majority of California. It's a California law. So the father said, Mr. Tinsley said, I know he's a boy. He wants to be a boy. He adamantly expresses that. If you say anything to the contrary, he gets very upset. Tinsley alleged that Sawyer's mother, who he says identifies as a lesbian and non-binary herself, tried to push her gender ideology onto the child from the time he was a baby. Oh my God, y'all. How cute. His little curly hair. How adorable. I want to squeeze him. He looks like a happy kid, and his dad seems like he really cares about his son. You know, we have so many fathers out here who are non-existent in their child's life, and here's a good father trying to do the right thing. And it seems like the court system went to bat for the mother initially until this became a nationwide case, and the media got a hold of it, and yeah, so it's only, in my opinion, because the right news outlets told us about this, that he won custody of his son. Opinion. So it said this included a cruel campaign of gaslighting, referring to Sawyer with they them pronouns over his, so she was calling they them pronouns and forcing him to wear girls' diapers, dresses, makeup. So a few years back, he had like a GoFundMe page because it was so expensive to fight this battle. It was Give, Send, Go page, raising funds for his legal fight. Tinsley told of his initial joy at learning his then girlfriend was pregnant in 2019. So it seems like he's moved on with his life, and this has held him up in court. It says, he says, unfortunately, excitement turned into pain when his mother, who suffers from serious underlying mental health problems, abruptly ended our relationship and prevented me from seeing Sawyer. No, this was when it started. This is when it started. So his girlfriend was pregnant in 2019. After fighting an uphill battle in California progressive court system for a year, he was finally able to meet his son for the first time. He saw Sawyer for the first time when he was 15 months old. It says, but Sawyer's mother's gender obsession grew, and the boy remained subject to all manner of manipulative tactics. Poor fellow. Look at his dad getting him out snowboarding. This is what I'm talking about. This is what we need more of. They're out snowboarding. How cute. Y'all, I need to get me a little board that sticks to the window back there. A little suction cup that has this on there. It's annoying. Maybe they got one at the Dollar Tree for $1 or something. So it seems like the father wants to be active in his son's life. And like it said, she wouldn't even let him see his son. Y'all. So the father says that she threw Sawyer a girly themed party for his 2nd birthday where she made him wear a dress donated with a sheriff's badge. Another incident, the mother took the child to Disneyland but refused to let him go on any rides unless he wore princess shoes that she had bought for him. After learning that Sawyer's mother had been arrested for felony child endangerment, Tinsley filed for full custody in San Francisco's Superior Court last year, claiming that she had slandered and defamed him for years. The details of that arrest and incident are unclear. The dad said that he kept presenting the court with mountains of evidence, including 8 hours of police body cam footage and over 800 pages of supporting documents, but the court sided with Sawyer's mother. So he says that he appealed the decision last December and claims that Child Protective Services in San Francisco became involved following an alleged incident. CPS investigated and recommended that Tinsley be granted full custody of the boy and that the mother be subject to regular drug and alcohol testing. Tinsley acknowledged that the investigators more than likely had different politics than he, but said that he was grateful to them for putting politics aside and doing what they felt was best for the child. This is a rare case. I just want to say that. Very rare. It's very rare for men to be able to get full custody of their children, which is unbelievable to me, but more often than not, the judge sides with the mother. It's not right. If the father is stable, functioning, and able to support that child, has a home, has a job, then I don't see why they don't give custody to the father more. I guess, they kind of have this attitude that the mother birthed the child, and so she kind of has more rights, but I don't agree with that. I think that whoever's the fit parent, the child should go with. But you come to a state like this, where their laws are crazy and they're trying to break up families, and you don't have a shot in the dark unless you have a bunch of money. And I think that it said that this father was able to come up with over $65,000 for this. I mean, what parent has 10 grand laying around? Not many. This poor guy, I'm glad that he got his son. So his mother tried to paint the father as some right-wing hillbilly from Mississippi or something, even though it had nothing to do with the investigation. It says that Mr. Tinsley calls Sawyer his best friend and is the most amazing, and says that he is the most amazing, greatest blessing of his life. And now that he is back with his dad, he gets to focus on just being a regular kid with no one trying to force him into an ideological box. I agree. Kids don't care about sex or identity or all of these fake, weird concepts. They just care about having fun and spending time with their parents. And I agree. I'm so proud of this father for fighting. so scary to think that you're trying to do the right thing and the person you fornicated with is now your biggest enemy when it comes to raising your child. Oh, my computer's froze. Whew, y'all. So 6 days ago, right on theme, you know, yesterday we were talking about good cop, bad cop, blah, 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 blah. So yesterday I told y'all a case of the man that had groomed a school-age child and was going by her house, seeing her. Apparently, just 7 days ago, there was another officer who was arrested, Jamal Bradley, and it's Jamel, so it might be Jamal. I can't say it right, but he was a resource officer at a high school, and he essayed multiple students. And I just want to be clear that when you are in this position, when you are in a government position like this, whether you're a corrections officer, a CO, a law enforcement officer, whether you work at the hospital and you're an emergency responder, whether you MS, wherever it is, whatever you're doing, when you work those kind of positions, it is unethical to have any relationship with anyone that you meet through that job, especially underage children. So regardless, there was 2 students that I'm going to talk about that he was involved with, but one of the girls was apparently not only underage, but busted having sex with him in his patrol car and while him in uniform. And I just want to say that even though by law, statutory rape laws, blah, 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 it's unethical. It doesn't matter that she was 16, 17 years old. She was still a child, and he was still in a place of power where he is to be guiding her, teaching her to do the right things, not coercing her and grooming her into having sex with him. I don't care how old she was. I don't care if she was 25. It's still wrong. So it says star athlete turned school security officer admits to essaying students and avoids jail time. That's right, folks. That's right. He's not going to see a jail cell. So this is him. So it says Jamal Bradley, 45, pled guilty to sexually abusing 2 students in Columbia, South Carolina. A South Carolina school security officer was excused of prison time after pleading guilty to having a sexual relationship with 2 students between 2015 and 2018. Jamal Bradley, 45, a former deputy in Richland County, South Carolina, was given probation and ordered to join the sex offender registry after he pled guilty on Tuesday, September 3rd. Here's the kicker, though. Y'all want to know what's crazy? The prosecutor was actually fighting for his benefit so that he didn't have to join the registry. Not only that, there was multiple people that continued to come forward telling his supervisors that he was weird. There were other officers over the years going to their superiors and saying, this guy Jamal, Officer Bradley, is kind of weird with young girls. Anytime he gets around young girls, he's inappropriate with them. So his fellow resource officers at the high school had been to their superiors telling them that he was a weirdo. Parents had been to the school board saying he was a weirdo. School teachers had saw how inappropriate he was with students on campus, specifically young girls. And it was reported and nobody ever did anything. Until one girl came forward stating that she was assaulted by him. It's just unbelievable. Once again, when you see something, it is your duty. It is your ethical duty. It is absolutely your moral responsibility as a human to do the right thing. And when you see something, you need to say something. And it sounds like multiple people knew that this guy was inappropriate and nothing was done. And it's unbelievable that he just got probation. So it says the original charges he faced were 3rd-degree criminal sexual conduct and sexual battery with a student 16 or 17 years of age. no aggravated force or coercion. And the reason why was because one of the victims actually agreed to do this with him, but once again, that does not matter. She was still a child. He is the adult. There's an imbalance of power there. These charges could have led up to 15 years in prison. However, following a deal with authorities, Bradley pled guilty to sexual battery sexual battery with one student, and assault and battery of the first degree against another student. The investigation revealed that Bradley was a popular school resource officer who lured female students from his place of employment and met with them in his office and or his patrol car. He was a former basketball player, and actually, he was a star basketball player that actually still has records from the University of South Carolina that have still not been beat to this day. So he was a star athlete for the University of South Carolina, where he was the team's leading scorer as a junior and senior, and broke multiple records that still stand. He was first charged in 2019 in connection with a sexual misconduct charge involving a 17-year-old student. In 2015, a student at the high school where Bradley worked told authorities that she had what she said was a consensual relationship with him during her senior year. On another occasion in 2018, Bradley went to a female student's home after school hours, drove her to a dead end, and began assaulting her. During his plea agreement, Bradley apologized to his victims. Something that really stuck out to me about this guy is that the same situation as yesterday's officer, he was looking for any and every way to groom these young girls. And as you can see, one of them, it worked, because she willingly got in the back of a police car and fornicated with him. You know, when you are a officer, it is unethical. By law, you can't be sleeping with inmates. You can catch charges for that, because an inmate cannot consent to a sexual relationship with somebody who is overseeing their incarceration. So you can't do that in prison. When you're seeing these female officers hook up with these men and stuff, they're fired on the spot because of it, because you cannot consent as an inmate to a sexual relationship with an officer, or any kind of relationship with an officer. They actually, when you go to maximum security prison, they actually have a 30-minute long class and a video that they show you, letting you know that you are to have no kind of relationship with anybody that works at the prison, that you cannot consent to that, and if you try to consent to it, you're still going to get in trouble. You can't. And the same thing goes for these children that are going to school, and this is their resource officer. They're children. They're children. Let's start there. But also, even if they are 18, 17, I don't know what the statutory rape laws are in South Carolina, but regardless, they're children, and they cannot consent because he is their superior. And then to know that prosecutors were fighting to keep him off the sex registry list is unbelievable, when everybody in this town knew that he was a weirdo. Prosecutors had only asked that he received sex offender counseling. They were not asking the judge to make it mandatory for him to be on the sex offender registry. Ultimately, he has to register. Good. He used his position of power to get laid and harm people whose brains are not even fully developed, people that shouldn't be making rash decisions like this, people that cannot mentally compete with an adult. Whew. Y'all, I found this kind of crazy story. I want to see if I can get through this. Where is... I hope everybody's having a good afternoon out there. I still have not cut my nose hairs. So, exotic dancer arrested for slapping customer in the face with cash. The sound is a little backwards. You would think that it was the customer slapping the dancer with cash, but I guess not. It says police were called Tuesday night to the topless strip club, Body Talk, in Port St. Lucie, Florida. Florida stories. John McKelvey complained that he was talking to several employees about his career when the ladies got upset. He told cops that the women were upset that he had not provided any tips. According to the Smoking Gun, he said, quote, "I did not see any signs stating that it was mandatory to tip." Sorry, buddy, it's a strip club. Yes, yes, it is. No wonder why the dancers were upset. He was bragging about his job and all of the money that he makes, but was refusing to tip the girls. Guess he doesn't know strip club etiquette. I used to deal with men like this every day in a strip club. It was so infuriating. And they're all broke. The ones that come in acting like this are broke. A friend of McKelvey said his friend was super drunk and talking about how much money he made. The problem was he was enjoying the entertainment and bragging about not tipping the girls. One dancer took her aggravation out on him and allegedly slapped him in the face with a wad of cash. That's when police were called to the strip club. See how quick it is to go to jail? Somebody's in your place of work, aggravating you, taunting you, talking shit about how much money they make and that you're poor and da-da-da-da-da-da. I mean, honestly, it is up to the club to kick these assholes out when they behave like that, but these clubs are so desperate for bar money that they allow these assholes to sit there and drink and be disrespectful nowadays. My lips are dry, per usual. Victoria Jones, 28, took things into her own hands after all of the girls were complaining about this guy. How odd his behavior was and disrespectful. She told deputies that he was extremely drunk and being rude to all of the girls. He was following employees from table to table to verbally insult them. That's when she picked up some cash and threw it in his direction. She claimed it was a non-aggressive manner. It was in a non-aggressive manner and mentioned it was common to just throw money around in the strip club. However, when police pulled the club's surveillance camera, you could see Jones hit the man with the cash. Oh, wow. And then slap him with an open hand strike. Police arrested her for misdemeanor battery. Oh my God. Getting the crap beat out of you, huh? So this was another crazy strip club story that I found that was kind of crazy. So listen up, ladies and men, because this happens to men all the time too. So the question was, what was your worst experience in a strip club? And this is Jessica Ramirez. She says, I wouldn't believe it if it wouldn't have happened to me. I had one drink that was bought for me, and I pretty much only get a glimpse and pieces of the rest of the night. It was the worst thing that has ever happened to me and the scariest by far. This group of guys managed to get my girlfriends and I into the VIP line. Looking back, I think this was a joke because this place was a tiny average bar. It's weird that they had a VIP line in the first place. We got into the club and they wanted to buy us drinks. I honestly don't know how I was left behind feeling sorry for these awful boys, but I did. It was a total slap in the face as well because they really wanted to flirt with my friends. They had no interest in me, but rolled their eyes and jacked me up anyways. I drank the drink and took a couple of sips of it. Whoa. So she said that the next day, these are the flashbacks that she has. Kissing one as if it was no big deal, and then kissing the other one. I'm not talking pecks on the cheek. Sitting on one's lap like a baby, meaning legs wrapped around him, hands around his neck, practically passed out. Being in the back seat of their car, sitting on one of them's lap, trying to tell my friends that I was fine and that I wanted to go home with them. There were 5 fucking guys. The 5 guys were so casual. Quote, yeah, she wants to go. By the grace of God, one of my girlfriends reached into the car and grabbed me by the root of my hair and said, bitch, get the fuck out of this car right now. Get out. As she dragged me with all of her strength, I got out. They drove off. Waking up the next morning, I had a headache and went to grab my purse for the ibuprofen in it. A friend was laying next to me, fully clothed, already awake, and looking at me with disgust. She asked me if I remembered anything, and that's when I thought, oh shit, what the hell happened? We were all so naive. I never found my purse. I did find a black bag, slightly larger but really heavy. Inside the bag, there was 20 to 25 little shorties, the little shot bottles of Jack Daniels, Bacardi 151, Crown Royal. It was weird to us, but we must have been the dumbest girls ever because we just thought smart. So they go in a bar, order a soda, and put this in it. Beats buying a $7 drink. Phone rings. Apparently, I had given my number to them and my address. They had my purse, but wanted their bag back. A bunch of the assholes. Okay, so it sounds like there was a bag switch. So she took their black bag that was a little bigger by accident that had all of these airplane bottles in it. They have her purse. The phone rings. And they want their bag back really bad. A bunch of assholes yelling at me and about when and where to meet them. We were scared. Mind you, the thought that I had been slipped a roofie didn't cross our minds yet. Needless to say, we were carrying a bag full of laced bottles. What? I called homeboy up. He went to make the transaction for us, and that was that. I never really believed that people could take advantage of people like that they didn't know or care about. Why? For what? I was lucky because my girlfriends, I can't even let my mind wonder what could have happened to me. I just know the unimaginable does happen to people who don't have a friend like that will pull you out of by the hair of your head out of a car. And I cannot emphasize enough to never drink what you haven't purchased yourself ever. I see so many girls in the clubs doing this. They just leave their drinks laying around. I see girls going on dates that do it, and speaking of dates and drink spiking, there was a girl recently who was a 36-year-old woman, Zoe Rossi, who had a Tinder date and was assaulted on this Tinder date. She said that after the assault in 2018, the assault left her feeling like a worthless person after her drink was spiked and she was assaulted. Zoe opened up about the confusion she felt in the aftermath. The hazy recollections make it so easy for her to blame herself. She reveals in her new book that the perpetrator had also acted like the pair had simply had a one-night stand and even texted her a few times after he assaulted her. By the time she came to terms with the horrific event, Zoe said that it was too late to take legal action because she had washed off the DNA. I feel like I might have talked about this prior, but this is Zoe. And she met the guy on Tinder, and she had one drink. He ordered a drink, and she drank one drink. He made one drink. Her drink was spiked. She said that he seemed like a cute, above your average type of guy. So when they first matched on Tinder, she was super happy about it, and he seemed very humble and normal through text messages, and that he would send her random selfies. And she said that in the selfies he looked a bit vain, but he sounded humble on the phone through text messages. So she kind of got this vibe that he was kind of metrosexual, that he was like a girl's kind of man, you know. You know what I mean? He took very good care of himself, and he looked kind of like too proper in pictures, but she was willing to give it a chance, even though he seemed kind of maybe like outside of her league a little bit. The pair met in a pub southeast of London. After just one glass of wine, Zoe nipped to the bathroom, leaving her drink with him on the table while he bought her another round. During the second drink, she began to feel really, really, really drunk and out of it, which was out of character, as she can normally drink a few glasses of wine without feeling drunk. And then apparently she started feeling even more out of it. She wanted to go outside for fresh air, and that's when things become kind of a blur. So this seems to be her book, one of them. I think she's a writer. Someone's watching me, and it's R-O-S-I, her last name. So she is a writer. She found that writing her novel, a book about a Me Too serial killer hunting sexual predators, has also helped her in recovering. And you guys know that, like, part of me healing, it's been helpful for me to talk about what I've been through too, so I can understand how her writing a book, she feels like it's helping her process everything she's been through. The best thing to do when you've been through trauma is to talk about it. Sometimes you need to give yourself, 18 months to start talking about it. I never do that. But Jordan Peterson says to wait about 18 months. And then you can start journaling and speaking of the events, the trauma that you went through, to start healing from it. If you do that too soon, you have the potential to re-injure yourself and then start spiraling into mania like I do. So the next thing that she knew, she was in the back of a taxi after she went outside to get fresh air. She like blacked out. It's all a blur. The next thing she knew, she was in a taxi, and he was offering the taxi driver cash. She thought this was weird because people rarely carry cash anymore. And for her, she feels like that this indicates the events were premeditated, because he used cash instead of using a card, which would have left a record. Zoe said that he was acting as if he was taking care of her because she was drunk. The last thing she remembers is them being in her bedroom before she woke up the next day with him in her bed, both of them naked, and she could tell that they had had intercourse. Once again, he acts like it was no big deal. I woke up the next morning, she said, and he was just like laying next to me. I knew we had had sex. We were both naked, and I just remember thinking, what the hell happened? I felt this horrible dark feeling inside, like something was really wrong. She rushed immediately to blame herself, thinking that maybe she just got too drunk and then maybe it was all her fault. Knowing that she couldn't have consented in the state that she was in, she still blamed herself. And she says that she was feeling guilty about it. I knew something was wrong, seriously wrong, but I didn't want to admit it to myself. He was acting like we had just had a one-night stand, and he was just a bit sheepish and got up and quickly left. I was laying there with this horrible, foreboding feeling that I knew what happened was wrong. Zoe reached out to some friends, but found that it was easy to have her traumatic experience normalized. I texted an older male friend from work about what happened, who's from a different generation, and he replied saying, "You haven't done anything thousands of other women don't do on a Saturday night." So I thought to myself, maybe it is normal, but looking back, it was such a misogynistic thing to say, and I have to agree. Just because most women are promiscuous nowadays does not mean that all women are. And it's clear to me that she would not have slept with him if she wouldn't have been roofied. Once again, she didn't even seem that into him because he seemed like he was like bougie, you know what I mean? But anyways, my self-esteem went down a lot because I thought I'm just a worthless person who no one respects and men can just use. I thought to men, I'm just a piece of meat. The guy texted me a few times afterwards, not asking to meet up, but acting like everything was normal, so I replied like everything was normal. After around a few months, I started to realize that this really wasn't right, but at that point I had no DNA because I'd washed it all off. Only some text messages that looked like a one-night stand. She said that she eventually briefly spoke to the police about the incident, who said that they could take a witness statement, but she claims that she was told they couldn't take things further because the Crown Prosecution Services wouldn't do anything. She tried going back to Tinder a few times after the incident, but each time felt like a lamb to the slaughter. That's how you should feel, girl, because that's what you are. When you're on Tinder, that's what you are. It was like self-harm. There's a lot of dodgy guys on there. They'll just act like they're on Uber Eats and they're ordering pizza and ask you to come over to their place for a hookup. You don't even know me. Why would you want to do that? Exactly. Zoe admitted the experience made her lose faith in men for a long time. I would be very careful, she warned. I think people should be friends before they want to become anything else, because people can be a persona to get what they want. Absolutely. Now I think it's a good thing to have a daytime date without any alcohol, just a coffee, a walk, and if a guy is decent and actually wants to get to know you, he would be totally fine with that. If you're talking to a predator, they won't have the patience for that. That's exactly why I give my number out and try to talk to somebody for a while. If they can't even have a conversation, honey, they don't need to be in a relationship, okay? I meet so many people that are super defensive. I mean, and it's just like, dude, why are you being defensive? I'm just trying to get to know you. That's a red flag right there. So it says, my computer won't act right. Zoe has found that writing her novel, a book about a Me Too serial killer hunting sexual predators, has also helped with her recovery. In a moment of depression and unable to pursue legal justice, the writer created an empowered fashion editor who moonlights as a vigilante, murdering rapists, pedophiles, and abusers. I don't know about that. Writing, let's see. It says, writing the novel Pretty Evil, for which TV rights are now option, was a therapeutic outlet to the date rape. Around 3 months after the event that left her feeling violated, depressed, and destroyed her self-esteem, Zoe began to write. In Pretty Evil, that was published in January, it's based on her experience. Imagine thinking you're going out to dinner to with potentially your future husband, and this happens. You just got to be careful out here. Don't leave your drinks unattended on dates. Don't leave your drinks unattended, at all, no matter what, no matter who you're around. You got to be careful. I mean, unless you know them, of course, but like, you know what I mean? Especially when you're out drinking. I don't think anything ever happened to the guy, but we also don't have a toxicology report to verify that this even happened, and I'm not doubting her, but what I am saying is this is a story. It's a warning. Both of those are a warning. It happens every single day. Oh, Lord. And the last thing we're going to talk about is the mandate. Y'all, this is so hard to read. When I tell you that I literally this morning, for 2 hours, it took me to like get through half of this because it's a lot. Where did it go? Oh my God. I don't know why my computer is like a piece of crap, but it is. Let me tell you. No, it's in section 3. I literally had it up. It took me 20 minutes earlier to find it because it's like a 1,000-page document. There it is. All right. Hold on one second. So this is the media agency's part of Leadership for Mandate Project 2025. There is several parts of this mandate for leadership, and this is the media aspect, and it's going to talk about how our media is failing right now, what needs to happen to fix it, and all of the issues from our media and how much power they have and how much power they shouldn't have. I mean, I think that we can all collectively agree that the media lies. I just don't feel like journalists should have the power to be able to print lies. I feel like that they should face some kind of discrimination as journalists. Not discrimination, but they should face some kind of, nobody wants to deal with them because we know that they lie. Do you know what I mean? Like blacklist. They need to be blacklisted when we know for a fact that they're doing they're reporting unethical news, and when they're blatantly lying. Damn it. There we go. I got it. All right. Oh, it's dead. Damn it. All right. So the mission of the United States Agency for Global Media, I'm going to refer to them as GM Global Media. They're called the USAGM, but that's going to be a lot to say over and over again. So the mission of the GM is to inform, engage, and connect people around the world in support of freedom and democracy. However, this mission statement does not reflect the current work of the agency. The mission is noble, but the execution is lacking. To fulfill its mission, the GM should also aim to present the truth about America and American policy, not parrot America's adversaries' propaganda and talking points. So it's saying, we all know that the swamp is controlling the media right now. If you don't, let me tell you, they are. The swamp is controlling the media. What we hear, what we read is all controlled by this administration, and they should not have the power to brainwash us through media, but they do. I'm just over this already. I'm about to grab my phone and read 268. Remember, 268. So, I'm trying to read it, and I click on it, and I scroll down. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay. Originally formed as the Broadcasting Board of Governors, the BBG, in 1994, the BBG changed its name in 2018 to the United States Agency for Global Media, GM. GM is a sub-cabinet agency of the U.S. government with a budget of just under $1 billion. The agency oversees two government broadcasting networks, the Voice of America, which is the VOA, and the Office of Cuba Broadcasting, the OCB. The GM also oversees 100% of the grant funding for several independent guaranteed organizations, including the Middle East Broadcasting Network, the MBN, Radio Free Asia, which is RFA, Radio Free Europe, Liberty, and the newly formed Open Technology Fund. The Voice of America, the VOA, provides news and information in 48 different languages to a weekly audience of more than 325 million people worldwide. For more than 80 years, the VOA journalists have supplied news and information about the U.S. audience-specific regions of interest and concern and the world at large. The VOA radio and television signals are broadcasted to approximately 3,500 affiliates, and satellite transmission reach countries where free speech is banned or where civil society is under threat. So, a lot of countries don't have freedom of speech, so that's scary. So they have to broadcast different content because of that. Y'all see my little sign? I hope you can see it. I feel like you can half-ass see it. The VOA uses digital web and mobile media as well, which, while sometimes useful in propagating valuable information globally, has created specific violations of the agency's prohibition against broadcasting to the domestic U.S. audience, particularly with regard to flagrantly political content. Now, I had to Google that word. I hope I said it right. Has been the practice with recent and current VOA content directors and managers. The network once had a generally well-received brand value, but it has deteriorated under decades of poor leadership and a loss of its once prized unbiased reporting. There are bright spots within the VOA, but mismanagement and declining production values have diluted its once great reputation as a singular voice in American news broadcasting abroad. So it's saying that our media has fell into shambles just like the rest of the country. I love that it's pointing out that propaganda is being reported and not the actual news. That's what it's talking about. Now, this mandate for leadership goes on to tell you about each of the different news outlets and how they're failing individually, since they're not here since one of them's in the Middle East and another one is in Cuba and another one is in Europe. We, oh, actually, hold on one second. It goes on to tell you how these are private, non-profit media corporations. Radio Free Asia is. Radio Free Europe is a private, non-profit, multimedia broadcasting corporation that serves as a surrogate media source in 27 different languages, 23 countries, including Afghanistan, Iran, Pakistan, Russia, and Ukraine. The Middle East Broadcasting Network is an Arabic language news organization with a weekly audience of 27 million people in 22 different countries in the Middle East and North Africa. The Office of Cuba broadcasts and oversees radio and television. Marty? Multimedia hub of news, information, and analysis that provides the people of Cuba with programs through satellite television, radio, and digital media. So it tells you about the different ones. If you want to read them, you can. It's on page 237 of Project 2025 Mandate for Leadership book. There's a PDF online that you can download and read through. Let's see here. It says several reports from the Office of the Inspector General, the OIG, were released showing waste and self-dealing, including security vulnerabilities, and RFA leadership awarding insiders millions of dollars of grant funding. For example, as the OIG stated in one report, the then president of RFA established the Freedom to Connect Foundation and therefore afterwards 2 contracts totaling $1.2 million of the foundation she herself founded. This same leadership proceeded to wastefully form the Open Technology Fund as its own independent guarantee with the help of the GM senior management prior to the tenure of the Trump-appointed leadership. The Open Technology Fund's goal is to provide funding to support the research, development, and implementation of it means they're gonna put that shit into action. They're gonna implement it. I just can't say it. Of internet freedom technologies that circumvent censorship. When I tell y'all that I have to be getting smarter, I sure hope so. These are some hard words. Oh, hard words they are. All right. Ooh. Oh. Thank y'all for sticking this one out for me with me. When I tell you that I've read this probably 10 times and it's still difficult, but every time I read it, I pick up another Easter egg. So it clicks after I read it 100 times. So this is the Open Technology Funds. It says that the OTF was formed under dubious circumstances by using consolidation rules to usurp the mission and funding of the GM's pre-existing Office of Internet Freedom, which funded far more diverse technologies with much greater transparency. And I think that I messed that. It's usurp the mission and funding of the GM pre-existing Office of Internet Freedom, which funded far more diverse technologies with much greater transparency. The OTF, however, operates with far less transparency and strictly restricts funding to open source technology. OTF does not support any technology with even partial closed sourced code, notwithstanding that such closed source code would provide more protection against hacking. And didn't we just have a huge hacking situation at a bunch of tech companies and personal information and social security numbers? And y'all, I don't know. I just know that you would think that we would be combating these things. And it says that the Open Technology Funds was formed under dubious circumstances. Although the OTF touts large user numbers, this could not be sustained upon request for information, and it was discovered by former senior GM leadership that the OTF makes extremely small, insubstantial donations to much larger messaging applications and technology to bolster its unsubstantiated claims. Lord, this is hard, y'all. Ooh, despite its vibrant self-lobbying and publicist efforts, the OTF remains a wasteful and redundant boondoggle. Lord have mercy. Couldn't you just say, oh, we're wasting taxpayer money on a stupid program? Publicity. Thank you. Despite its vibrant self-lobbying and publicity efforts, it remains wasteful and a redundant boondoggle. Its guarantee status was suspended by Trump-appointed GM leadership for a number of reasons, including non-compliance with its grant terms and for actions that resulted in several fraud and waste investigations. With much greater transparency, the OIF succeeded with fewer staff while simultaneously fielding more diverse and robust technologies. That's it. Of course I do. Absent a meaningful organizational impact analysis to justify the wastefulness of the decision-making process, OTF, there's that word again. I gotta figure out how to say this, y'all. USURP. 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 Usurp.
Usurp.
Usurp. Oh, it says to take a position of power or importance illegally or by force. Usurp. Usurp. All right. The OTF usurped the entire OIF budget and was set up as a new guarantee organization. So they're saying that they did this illegally, pretty much, or that they were like infringing on some people's rights by allowing this to continue. It says extraditing matters. OIF was shut down in order to provide massive grants to the opaque activities of OTF and its founding leadership, who went on a free spending boondoggle for a high-end Washington, D.C. office space, furnishings, and top salaries for its leadership team. Numerous career staff whistleblowers came forward to sound the alarm about the OTF to Donald Trump appointed leadership, citing concerns about the OIG report's wasteful spending and other performance matters. Nonetheless, the Biden administration reinstated OTF to full operational status and ceased all investigations immediately after assuming office. Lord have mercy. So it said, late in the Trump administration, following the long-delayed Senate confirmation of Michael Pack as GM Chief Executive Officer, agency leadership rapidly initiated long overdue and necessary reforms, including security reforms repeatedly requested by the Office of Personnel Management, the OPM, and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the ODNI, had been ignored by the GM leadership. Unfortunately, as was the case with the OTF, the Biden administration immediately reinstated personnel who had been fired for gross security violations, placing the agency back into its previously failed posture, one that poses a danger to national security. Unbelievable. Let's talk about the firewall saga. The vital era in GM's current organizational cultural calculus is the Cultural callus is the agency's selective application of journalistic firewall. I literally Googled this 100 times. The amorphous interpretation of a firewall shifts depending on which administration is in office and who is asking the questions. So when we had Trump in there, things were going decent. He changed some things, and then they got into office, the Biden administration, the Obama administration got back in there and changed it back, and it's failing. I mean, obviously, we all know that the media just lies. I mean, every single Harris campaign video that I've seen has been blatant lies. Bold-faced lies. So we know that it's not good. And it seems like Trump was trying to put things in order so that there was kind of like a gag order on the media so they couldn't overstep their boundaries. And a gag order is like in a court of law, I know, but like it's just for a lack of better term. It says, though a firewall should ensure journalistic independence, it has been used without formal regulation for decades in order to shrink legitimate oversight of everything from promoting adversaries' propaganda to ignoring journalistic safety. Often the firewall is touted when journalists are either promoting anti-American propaganda that parrots adversarial regime talking points or promoting politically biased viewpoints in opposition to the VOA charter. This is draining me, y'all. This is a difficult one. I get what it's saying, but that's after 100 times of reading this. Such weak oversight, alien to any other large media network or news organizations, particularly one derivative of U.S. foreign policy and national security goals, was erroneously enshrined in a document known as the Firewall Regulation. The Firewall Regulation was entered into Federal Register on the eve of the Senate confirmation of President Donald Trump's GM CEO Michael Pack. It was the quintessential midnight reg, designed to throttle the sanctuary and executive authority of the agency head. It's stipulated that agency management, by standards unknown to most large broadcast companies, was forbidden from engaging in oversight and direction of content in any way, even false content. It ran counter to the law, including the Smith-Mundant Act, and it was harmful to the agency itself and to foreign policy and national security goals of the U.S. government. Y'all with me? Y'all know when I ain't had this whole break, this whole thing is Lord water. When I get going, I don't want to start drinking water and then have to leave to go use the bathroom. So now that we're almost done, I can drink some water because I'm parched. I started to say there went another cap in between my seat. All right. I lose those things so bad. They just, once it's gone, I'm not digging for it. Even content that went well beyond fair and accurate reporting on U.S. domestic and political problems could not be reined in by front office leadership under the firewall regulation. Soon, the VOA's White House correspondent was posting content highly critical of and personally insulting to the U.S. president, in contradiction of the VOA's own journalistic standards, policies, and procedures. GM career officials considered each content sacrosanct and bravely independent journalistic content protected by the spirit of the firewall regulation, despite ample evidence to the contrary. Late in the Trump administration, the U.S. AGM political leadership, following an extensive U.S. Department of Justice review, revoked the firewall regulation over the protest of journalistic organizations. None were more vociferous, VOCIREROUS, good luck with that, than the VOA itself. While the absence of the firewall regulation are particularly disconcerting, oh Lord, sorry y'all. Disconcerting. Causing one to feel unsettled. And I done forgot how to say it already. Anyways, while the abuse of the firewall is particularly disconcerting, they encompass just a fraction of similar overreaches of the agency's journalistic mission. Current and former GM and VOA leadership, who wanted to maintain virtually zero accountability and oversight, waged a campaign of interference, resistance, and disinformation to stifle change at the agency. Perhaps not coincidentally, various media outlets, relationships to former and future GM leadership, publish near daily criticisms of the Trump administration, appointees, and also of guarantee organization leaders who were appointed by CEO PAC to implement long overdue reforms. Y'all keeping up? This is not the easiest one ever. On my back. My arms. All right. Agency mission failure. Currently, the GM, by and large, is not fulfilling its mission, which remains so ill-defined and ambiguous that it enables the organization to go on about its business largely unguided, with little to no oversight rather than providing news and information in an accurate, reliable way that promotes and supports freedom and democracy, the agency is mismanaged, disorganized, ineffective, and rife with waste and redundancy. Redundancy? Yeah. These shortfalls are either oriented towards or directly contribute to the agency's media organizations joining the mainstream media's anti-U.S. chorus and de-integrating the American story, all in the name of the so-called journalistic independence. Indeed, content during the Trump administration was rife with typical mainstream media talking points, assailing the president and his staff. The few bright spots within the VOA and the OCB are often stifled instead of supported. Top-level talent often leaves the agency or is met with obstacles rather than support. Opportunities for modernization and effective strategy are ignored, and wasteful spending in miscellaneous missallocation of resources are the norm in an environment in which nepotism is rampant and political gamemanship protects bad actors. If you do not know what nepotism is, let me tell you. Nepotism is, let's say your parents were famous actors. Let's say that your parents were Sonny and Cher. And because your parents were Sonny and Cher, you get contracts to do movies, sing songs because your parents were famous. So that's nepotism. We see a lot of that. Like Haley Bieber, who was previously Haley Baldwin, her father, Alec Baldwin, if I'm not mistaken, or it might be his brother, because there's like three of them, the Baldwin brothers. There's a couple of them. Anyways, the only reason she was even relevant was because her father. And we see that with the Kardashians. I mean, the only reason that their children are relevant, and yes, a 10-year-old is relevant, more relevant than you and I will ever be, Northwest. It's nepotism at its finest. She recently, speaking of Northwest, she recently had a contract with Disney to sing in a on-stage performance of The Lion King. I'm gonna be a mighty king. Yeah, that one. So she sang that and butchered it to hell. Now, this was a contract with Disney, and there were people that paid their hard-earned money to take their children to see this, and this child could not carry a tune in a bucket. And it really spotlights how nepotism happens, how it's celebrated, how these kids get special contracts, gifts. I mean, you name it. They get everything because of their parents, and it's not right. And it's happened in the political aspect, in the political sphere of the world. It happens there too. How many of our presidents had their sons that were also in politics, or how many of the congressmen that we have that are, got one foot in the grave right now, one foot in Congress? How many of those people have children that are also in politics? Because I'm telling you, it's quite a bit. So that's what nepotism is. It's Hunter Biden being able to make foreign business deals just by calling his father, and being able to get a stamp of approval on those business deals because his father was the president. That's nepotism. Okay, it says Amanda Bennett was confirmed as the USAGM CEO in 2022 after 2 years of being blocked by several members of Congress. Legal advocacy organization America First Legal Foundation even wrote to President Joe Biden asking him to withdraw her nomination, citing several severe national security failures while she was the director of the VOA. her tenure as the director during the Obama administration, what did I say, was martyred with operational failures, security failures, and credibility failures. Those failures are reportedly ongoing during her current tenure as CEO. What do I always say? People in positions of power, left and right. It goes on to list all of these failures. I'm not going to read all of those. I am going to read you the part on wasting taxpayers' money. So it says, wasting taxpayer dollars. The USAGM's current operations, properly managed, can be conducted on less than $700 million per year. Prior to the arrival of President Donald Trump's appointees in June of 2020, budgeting, financial responsibilities, and spending totaled over $800 million per year, with virtually no oversight or supervision. Waste, unnecessary spending, nepotism for pet projects, redundant programs, and unnecessary hiring abounded. That means like abundant, right? Like a lot, like it's just everywhere. Ah. They go on to list other things that need to be changed. One of them is consolidation and reduction of redundant services. So we have programs that we don't actually need, programs such as like critical race theory, DEI, things that we know are not effective. They go on to list, and not those specifically, I'm talking about the media. But let's talk about this J1 visa program abuses, because I found this interesting. I know about like K1 visas, that's like a marriage spousal visa. I know about a couple of different visas, student visas. There's different types of visas, green cards, or visas. So a visa is not a green card. A green card is you're here permanently, you're a citizen, you're recognized as an American citizen. A visa is a temporary status, a temporary kind of green card, so to speak, that says that you're legal to be in America, and it tells you, what the visa is. Now, the J1 visa program, Project 2025, all of the specialists that wrote this, all of the experts state that this J1 visa program is being abused. Rather than use the appropriate I visa, and I think that's probably a 1, it's a Roman numeral or an I, so I'm going to say a 1 visa. Rather than use the appropriate I visa, I said I was going to call it a 1, I visa. Rather than use the appropriate I visa intended for foreign journalists, the USAGM uses the J1 Cultural Exchange visa to allow foreign nationals to transition easily into jobs that American citizens with cultural and linguistic expertise could satisfy. The J1 visa is intended for cultural and academic exchange programs, among others, none of which includes journalism. So apparently this visa is not supposed to be used for what it's being used for. Additionally, the JI visas are meant for non-immigrant temporary exchanges. The USAGM's JI visa holders often go on to apply for permanent residency, which violates the intention of this visa. So they're saying that this program is it's being used illegally. So let's talk about personnel issues within the USAGM. It says personnel is one of the biggest concerns for the USAGM and its grantees. Attracting talented staff who will stay and letting go of poorly performing personnel are hurdles. Additionally, whistleblowers have came forward with numerous credible allegations of illegal nepotism and improper hiring practices. Past agency leaders have ignored national security procedures when hiring and have failed to adequately vet staff. Government hiring policies and federal law must be followed, and serious policy changes must be implemented to end these practices. It says the VOA firewall is meant to protect broadcasters from government interference with content. However, the USAGM staff have abused the firewall and used it as an offensive measure to block oversight. Additionally, the Smith-Mundt Act stipulates that the USAGM services are meant to tell the American story abroad, never to domestic audiences. But the agency has used its taxpayer funding to promote partisan messaging in the U.S. One of the most egregious examples was when in 2020 it bought ads on its foreign language social media sites to dismantle a Biden campaign ad and targeted it to a majority Muslim population in Michigan. Moreover, the VOA often airs foreign adversaries' propaganda, which is anti-ethical to its congressionally mandated core mission. The State Department oversight or command may be one way to ensure the VOA and the rest of the USAGM returns and adheres to its original mission. Clear lines of command and communications between the USAGM and the appropriate office of the National Security Council are also sorely lacking, as has been any reasonable accountability for the USAGM senior leadership and strategy. The State Department's Assistant Secretary for Global Public Affairs and Undersecretary for Diplomacy and Public Affairs should also be in the accountability loop for agency actions. While the U.S. Secretary of State technically has a seat on the board of the agency, it is a toothless seat that is often deferred to the undersecretary and or assistant secretaries noted above. This position should be relevant and decorative when the U.S. foreign policy and strategic communications are at stake. For example, the years-long delay in confirming the Trump-appointed CEO left disastrous holdover leadership from the previous administration, employing effective leadership even in an acting capacity, while a new CEO is awaiting Senate confirmation is necessary to prevent a repeat of this behavior. The USAGM receives its budget and mandates directly from Congress. It seems like this is what they're wanting to change. Often changes in major functions at the agency happens because of the lobbying efforts of a few connected individuals. Often grantees, it's guarantees or grantees. I think it's grantees lobbying for more funds and less accountability. Those changes can and do handcuff leadership from any meaningful oversight. An overhaul of the agency with review from Congress to modernize, streamline, and reduce waste must be done with congressional support. These include industry groups, nonprofits, trade associations, foundations, and activist organizations. For example, America First Legal Foundation, USAGM Watch, the BBG USAGM Watch, and the Whistleblower Protection Project. Whew, the conclusion. Whew, my head is like boom, 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 boom. The USAGM is a story of a lost opportunity both to help restore the world's confidence in the promise and the ideals of America, and to set a high mark for journalistic integrity and unbased reporting. These two areas have suffered severely under 2 decades of the USAGM mismanagement and lack of oversight. Finding solutions to these problems and the restoration of the agency's network must be the priorities of the future agency leaderships. To accomplish this, the USAGM must be fully reformed top to bottom with congressional and White House support. The possibility of consolidating not only the agency subparts, but bringing the entire agency under the supervision of the NSC, the State Department, or both would dramatically aid in that reform. If the de facto aim of the agency simply remains to compete in foreign markets using anti-U.S. talking points that parrot America's adversaries' propaganda, then this represents an unacceptable burden to the U.S. taxpayer and a negative return on investments. In that case, the USAGM should be defunded and disestablished. If, however, the agency can be reformed to become an effective tool, it would be one of the greatest tools in America's arsenal to tell American stories and promote freedom and democracy around the world. Now, there is still more to this. This is just a brief summary of this part of the book. It starts on page 268 and goes on for 20-something pages. Very interesting stuff. It definitely shines a light on how the media is able to lie to us. I didn't even know that we controlled the news around the world like this, but we do. Oh, it's crazy. So it starts on 268. So if you want to go read that, you can. It's definitely interesting to me trying to learn this stuff. I've learned a lot through reading through the mandate, different parts of it. It's definitely helped with my English and the words that I know and don't know. If you want to donate to my channel, you can. Venmo and Cash App. I hope that you could see it. Whoa, that gave me a headache, y'all. Not a bad one, but definitely I'm already stressing about jobs and stuff, so reading that's like not the easiest thing in the world. I need to use the potty. Let's go use the bathroom. I went in and bought me some strawberries. Where did they go? Oh, Mr. Strawberries, where are you at? I got them on discount for $4. I hope they don't taste like. They're half a day from fermenting, but other than that, I've been trying to get more fruit in my diet. It's not the easiest, though, when you're on the road all day. Hold on, I'm on this part. Hold on. Oh, Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream. Bum, 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 bum. Make her the cutest you've ever seen. Bum, bum, bum. Tell her lucky days on over. Oh, what was I singing a while ago? Oh, I'm gonna be a mighty king like no king was before. I used to love that song. That was my favorite one from The Lion King. In the 90s, I had the movie, and it was on VHS at my grandma's house. And we used to listen to that song over and over. I'm working on my roar. All right, we're throwing the coffee away because we don't need no more of that. Whew, I gotta potty like a rock star. Ooh. Oh no! I'm gonna be so mad if they give me a YouTube violation for that. Ah. Alright. Well, I'm gonna run, you guys. I've got some stuff to handle this afternoon. I'm gonna head back over there and actually get back on my email. I saw a comment on somebody's YouTube today, and he says, I've applied to 3 jobs, and he said, I've applied to 3 jobs. I had 1 interview, and I haven't been hired yet. I commented, I said, I've filled out over 4,000 job applications. I said, I've done over 450 in-person interviews. I said, honey, you're going to have to get up early and freaking hit it hard. I said, you should be able to get in about 20 applications a day and at least 4 in-person interviews. I bet that kid ain't even going to respond. That's funny. I mean, that's the truth, though. And I said, you're going to need temp agencies as your best friends. I said, Snag a Job, Glassdoor, blah, 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 blah. I said, yes, you're going to need all of them. It's so funny. But thank y'all for coming to my Talk It Too. I'm trying to get better stories, but a lot of the ones that I find that are like funny or like comical, they're old. So I try to keep it as recent as possible, because it's just best to keep it that way. There's always new news every day, so it's not like it's like hard to find news stories. People are always out here breaking the law and doing something stupid. I hope you guys have a good afternoon. Once again, if you'd like to support my channel, you can't see, I know. Thank you guys so much, and I hope that y'all have a good afternoon. We'll talk later. I'm going to answer some of these job application. Sometimes there's like 2 or 3. Hell, this one place wants me to verify I am who I am. So let me go do that for a job application. I love you guys.